And a federal judge temporarily blocking President Trump's buyout plan for federal workers. That's as Democrats are now calling for Elon Musk to be fired. NTD's Arian Pazdar has the latest on the administration's push to downsize the government.
A federal judge is halting President Trump's plan to reduce the number of federal employees by offering them financial incentives to quit their jobs. The ruling came just a few hours before the Thursday midnight deadline for workers to apply for the program. The judge is now extending the deadline to Monday, which is when he will hear a challenge to the program's legality. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt commented on the program while in D.C. on Thursday.
We encourage federal workers in this city to accept the very generous offer. If they don't want to show up to the office, then they're welcome to take this buyout, and we'll find highly competent individuals who want to fill these roles.
Meanwhile, Democrats are calling for an investigation of potential national security threats posed by Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. Lawmakers from the House Progressive Caucus addressed the issue on Thursday.
And today we're here to say with one voice, fire Elon Musk. An unelected, unaccountable billionaire now has seemingly unlimited powers over Americans' private data and over Americans' taxpayer dollars.
Musk says he's working to shut down USAID, which he called beyond repair. The lawmakers say that in that process, unauthorized individuals accessed classified data at USAID. Musk's team allegedly also accessed the Treasury's payment systems, which hold personal data for millions of Americans.
He sought to use his access to the Treasury payment system in order to cut off payments to USAID. This raises extremely serious concerns. If Elon Musk can shut off payments to an entire federal agency, we can only imagine what he will be doing with Americans' personal taxpayer information.
On Wednesday, the Trump administration agreed to restrict DOGE's access to the Treasury's payment systems for now. This came after a coalition of unions sued the federal government. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
Attorney General Pam Bondi's new orders could spell the end for sanctuary cities. Earlier, I spoke with Congressman Josh Brecheen of Oklahoma to get his insights on just that and how the House will settle on a pending budget reconciliation bill. Congressman Josh Brecheen, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, absolutely.
Congressman, newly confirmed Attorney General Pam Bondi, Attorney General now, saying that sanctuary cities that don't comply with federal authorities when it comes to immigration and deportations will be defunded.
I love it.
Tell us what this looks like, and this might include cities like New York City, Chicago, Boston, and others. What do you anticipate will come of this?
That people understand that under President Trump and his cabinet officials that we're making the right thing easy and the wrong thing hard. That there is an element when states took on the ability to be under this body politic called the United States of America, that there are areas that are resigned unto the federal government, areas retained by the states, and enumerated, Article 1, Section 8, naturalization lies unto the Constitution under Congress. And the states, in agreement and ratifying the Constitution, said yes. And so no municipality ought to be undermining the rule of law.
What role do you see financial leverage playing in enforcing the president's policies and initiatives? And what other tools and measures do you think will be there to help enforce some of these?
Look, I think the ability to say the federal government's done funding this is the impetus that is necessary. What other tools that the DOJ might have, I look forward to learning of those.
Now, your home state of Oklahoma, a border state to Texas, yes, which is obviously on the border and has been saturated a lot of the brunt of this illegal immigration. What are your constituents saying right now about these deportations?
Well, look, I can tell you what law enforcement at large, even as short as just an hour and a half ago, I was meeting with a district attorney and law enforcement officials, drugs-specific task force in Oklahoma. And they're talking about how Oklahoma, because of the border, has become a mecca. We've got a unique situation, and I would say sadly, Oklahoma brought in by ballot measure, I would use air quotes, medicinal marijuana, but it's more than medicinal, and that has attracted the cartel. And so we've got the drug trade in Oklahoma to a heightened level, and our law enforcement sees it every day. And so they told me a while ago, they said, from our viewpoint, you need to hear. I'm on Homeland Security Committee. What you guys do in terms of securing that southern border, it will pay dividends in law enforcement and what we're seeing within the drugs that are being moved through Oklahoma.
Congressman, switching gears just a bit here, House Republicans met earlier in the week in Speaker Johnson's office to discuss the reconciliation bill. If you could, talk to us what some of the sticking points might be and how you see this playing out.
I was in that meeting. I'm on the Budget Committee, and I appreciate the Speaker. He was thinking outside the box. He presented, by the time we got done, it was a conversation of ways and means and budget mostly. And one of the things that the Speaker was able to do is to start changing the timetable, and he's in conversation with the President about some time changes on the tax side, and to see what that could do and how that ties into being able to make sure that our debt and deficits don't expand, that we have robust growth we all know is going to follow the extension of the TCJA. But we also know there are other elements that can hinder the President's agenda, and I brought one of those up. And that is the fact that if we don't do a massive repeal of the Inflation Reduction Act that is subsidizing wind and solar, I come from Oklahoma, it's a top 6 exporter of natural gas. We are headed in the next 10 to 20 years of natural gas being displaced on our electricity generation, our power grid, by wind and solar. And while we're talking about the liquid gold, President Trump, and while he was talking about the green new scam, as he called it, and going after the unfairness of taking taxpayer dollars, Oklahomans, Americans at large, giving it to wind and solar, propping those industries up. So much of the wind ownership is overseas. So much of the solar beneficiaries are in China. And we are cutting our own financial throat because we're displacing on the electric grid natural gas. That hurts Oklahoma, that hurts America, with an unreliable system. Unreliable, think of what happened in Texas in 21, and unaffordable. And the cost of that on a 10-year basis is $750 to $826 billion taken from taxpayers to prop up that green new scam, as President Trump called it, agenda. And so permitting reform, President Trump, and this conference is all in favor of, but we have to do both. You have to take away the unfair advantage, taking taxpayer monies that are competing with oil and gas on the transmission, on the electric grid.
Lastly, Senate Republicans on Wednesday announced their intention to advance key components of President Trump's agenda starting next week. What does the timetable look like for House Republicans?
Quick and well studied. We've got to make sure that we're studying the issues. I'll end with this. George Washington has a great quote. He said, if the great power above, talking about God, could erect a standard of infallibility among political opinion, there's no being that would resort to it with more eagerness than myself. But as long as I remain a servant of the public, he goes on to say, as long as I've got upright intentions and close examination of the facts, I'll just rest on these while I keep the watch. So we got to make sure we have close examination time and upright intentions, and then we need to move as fast as we can with those two things in mind.
Congressman Brecheen, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
President Trump creating a task force to eradicate what he's calling anti-Christian bias within the federal government. He's also sanctioning the International Criminal Court for targeting Israel. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao brings us more.
On Thursday, President Trump announced that he's creating a new White House faith office, and he also signed a new executive order to establish a new task force to be led by Attorney General Pam Bondi, and that is to, quote, eradicate all anti-Christian bias within federal agencies. Here's his announcement this morning. Watch.
The head of a task force, brand new, to eradicate anti-Christian bias. About time, right? Anti-Christian, to immediately halt all forms of anti-Christian targeting and discrimination within the federal government.
President Trump was speaking at 2 prayer breakfasts this morning, and he also talked about his own faith. He says surviving the first assassination attempt strengthened his faith and changed him. He also emphasized that religion needs to play a more important role in the nation. Watch.
That God did that. I mean, it had to be. The chances of turning, there's no reason to turn to the right. It changed something in me, I feel even stronger. I believed in God, but I feel much more strongly about it. Something happened. And we have to make religion a much more important factor now. Our job is just going to be much easier. It unifies people, it brings people together.
And there are more actions. The White House confirmed to NTD that President Trump today also signed an executive memorandum to review all funding going out to non-governmental organizations or NGOs, especially those who depend on the federal government. The White House told us that they have reviewed funding, for example, being distributed by the USAID, and realized that millions of dollars are going out to fund programs related to DEI, transgenderism, as well as LGBTQ initiatives. And the goal of that review is to, quote, ensure the best use of American taxpayer dollars. And Trump also signed another executive order to impose sanctions on the International Criminal Court, or ICC, and that is as administrations accusing it of unfairly targeting the U.S. and Israel. The ICC last year issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Meanwhile, this set of actions comes as Israeli Prime Minister is visiting Washington this week and just met with Trump at the White House earlier this week. And Trump is also clarifying his plan for the U.S. to take over Gaza this morning, posting on Truth Social, saying that the Gaza Strip will be, quote, turned over to the U.S. by Israel at the conclusion of the fighting there. He also asked that the U.S. will work with regional partners to begin the construction of what would become, quote, one of the greatest and most spectacular developments of its kind on Earth. Meanwhile, President Trump is still emphasizing, though, that the U.S. will not send troops to the region, adding that what it's doing is to ensure regional stability.
Victims of religious persecution sharing their stories at an event right here in Washington, D.C. NTD correspondent Jason Blair reports from Capitol Hill.
It is so clear that we cannot forget those who have suffered, those who are suffering now, and those who will continue to experience the long shadow of being locked away for their religion or belief.
Advancing freedom of belief and confronting threats to this right around the world is the mission of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. The group publishes a list of victims who have been jailed or persecuted in some way over exercising their freedom of belief in various areas around the globe. It's called the Frank R. Wolf Freedom of Religious or Belief Victims List. However, they announced that they are now adding a list of names of known perpetrators who have violated others of this right.
For too long, religious freedom violators have enjoyed anonymity and evaded accountability for repressing freedom of religion or belief.
Several witnesses shared stories of persecution in different areas of the world. Some had experienced imprisonment, torture, and even the death of their loved ones.
The Chinese Communist Party and Xi Jinping had declared war against any authentic faith that refused to make their religion compatible with socialism, communism, and Xi Jinping's thought. I think the Communist Party has jailed more people's faith, we talk about millions, than the rest of the world combined. So
they burned me up to my neck in the burning hot sand. I survived, but sadly, others did not.
And shortly after my father began to share his views, the police arrested him on charges of blasphemy. On July 29th of 2020, more than 2 years into his imprisonment, my father was awaiting a court hearing when a malicious individual snuck a gun into the courtroom my father was in and fatally shot him.
The U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom is an independent and bipartisan federal government commission. It was established under the 1998 International Religious Freedom Act. Reporting on Capitol Hill, Jason Blair, NTD News.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.